Hello there, this is Al24 News live from Algiers. Coming up next in our news program. The World Health Organization has urged people to cancel some of their holiday plans to protect public health as the Omicron variant spreads globally. Plus, the governor of a central Philippine province devastated by Typhoon Rai last week asking the government to quickly spend or send food and other aid, warning that without outside help the situation will be worsening day by day. Also coming up, Turkey's lira gained as much as 15% plus in unpredictable trade on Tuesday, having posted a historic rebound from record lows in the previous session. And earlier this year, the Kyrgyz state nationalized the Xantera-owned mine, leading to a bitter legal battle that hasn't waned. As Omicron variant is spreading globally, the World Health Organization encouraged people to cancel their holiday plans in order to protect public health. As France, Germany and many other countries impose strict restrictions, the World Health Organization head Tedros Ghebreyesus said that an event cancelled is better than a life cancelled and that difficult decisions must be made. Meanwhile, World Health Organization Chief Soumaya Swaminathan said that it would be unwise to conclude that Omicron was a milder variant than previous ones.
All of us want to spend time with friends and family. All of us want to get back to normal. The fastest way to do this is for all of us, leaders and individuals, to make the difficult decisions that must be made to protect ourselves and others. In some cases, that will mean cancelling or delaying events.
1 year has passed signing the agreement to normalize relations between the Moroccan regime and the Zionist entity. This normalization, which opens the door for the Zionist entity on the South African region, threatens the stability of the entire area and is a stab in the back of the Palestinian cause. Islam Seed reports.
It all began with a tweet from former U.S. President Donald Trump on 10 December 2020, announcing the recognition of Morocco's alleged sovereignty over Western Sahara in exchange for the normalization of relations between Rabat and the Zionist entity. This was followed by an official announcement of the Moroccan regime, which confirmed the normalization of its relations with the Zionist occupier. Outraged Moroccan people went out into the streets to express their rejection of this decision, considered as a stab in the back of the Palestinian people. These peaceful demonstrations were brutally repressed and slogans of solidarity with the Palestinian people were banned. Despite international condemnations, protests and warnings, the Moroccan regime normalized its relations with the Zionist entity on December 22, 2020, in defiance of the Moroccan and Maghreb people who reject this shameful agreement. For the first time in the history of normalization with the Arab countries, the Moroccan regime also signed a security and military cooperation agreement with the Zionist entity, following the visit to Morocco of the Zionist Minister of Defense, Benny Gantz, last November, made the kingdom an advanced base of the Zionist enemy in the region. Several observers agree that Algeria is the first target of the normalization process, and that Morocco is trying to undermine Algeria, which defends the right of the Sahrawi and Palestinian people to independence. For a year now, the Moroccan people have continued their march of freedom and dignity, determined to put an end to the normalization of their country's relations with the Zionist entity.
Turkey's lira ended the session up over 20% after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan introduced a series of steps that he said will ease the burden of the weakened currency on Turks, while vowing to press on with a low rates policy that led to the lira slide in the first place. The lira, which was down more than 10% at 18.4 to the dollar earlier, strengthened sharply and ended up 25% on the day at 13.15 in reaction to Erdogan's announcement in its largest daily trading range on record. It remains down 45% so far this year.
We are presenting a new financial alternative to citizens who want to alleviate their concerns stemming from the rise in exchange rates when they evaluate their savings. With the interest rate cuts, we will all see how inflation will start falling within months. This country will no longer be a heaven for those adding to their money with high interest rates. It will not be an import haven.
Minister Chris Hipkins told a media conference in Wellington that New Zealand postponed its border reopening plans until the end of February due to the concerns of a spreading Omicron variant of the coronavirus. The minister also announced that New Zealand would shorten the gap between second vaccine doses and boosters for 6 to 4 months as a step to protect the public health. Australian Prime Minister declared on Tuesday that his country will not have any lockdown restriction. Scott Morrison explained that his government is not willing to close people's lives again, and the government's mission to intervene in bid to keep case numbers down was over. This came ahead of an urgent meeting with territory leaders, which he explained will discuss how Australia will continue to live with the virus. And for more news about COVID-19 around the world, let's follow this report in which most countries targeted the unvaccinated, but some of them want to vaccine even young children.
In Germany, leaders will meet to discuss new restrictions as they are facing a fifth wave. The National Disease Control Centre added the UK to its list of virus variant areas, becoming the 8th country on the list, meaning that those coming from these areas will need a negative PCR test and a 14 days quarantine, regardless of their vaccination status. In the Parliament, the majority voted in favour of a vaccine mandate for hospital and care workers. Prime Minister Boris Johnson had warned that the country faced a tidal wave of infections from the Omicron variant, announcing a huge increase in booster vaccinations for all adults by the end of December. London Mayor Sadiq Khan announced on Monday that traditional New Year's Eve festivities in Britain's capital were cancelled. In England, the chief medical officer urged people to limit who they see in the festive period. People now need certificates to get into nightclubs and sports stadiums to prove that they have been fully vaccinated or have had a recent negative test. Similar schemes are also in place in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. France's health authority has approved COVID-19 jabs for children 5 to 11 years old. Vaccinations for kids who are at risk for severe COVID-19 began last week as the government urged people to get tested and keep holiday gatherings small amid high infections due to COVID-19. And from January the 15th, all adults will need a booster jab at least 7 months after being fully vaccinated in order to keep their health passes. The Netherlands is back to a nationwide lockdown since December 19 to curb the Omicron variant. The Prime Minister Mark Rutte said that the move was unavoidable because of the fifth wave caused by the Omicron variant that is bearing down on us. Young children registered the steepest rises in infections in a recent coronavirus surge in the Netherlands. The European Commission adopted rules that will make the European Union COVID-19 certificate valid for travel 9 months after the completion of the primary vaccination schedule. The proposal comes as several European Union states introduce additional requirements on travelers in a bid to reduce the spread of the Omicron coronavirus variant.
Jurors retired after starting deliberations in the manslaughter trial of Kimberly Potter, the former Minnesota police officer who mistook her handgun for her taser and shot black motorist Dante Wright during a traffic stop. Marwa Belaiwa reports.
After officers shot a black motorist mistakenly, the jury met for about 5 hours following closing arguments in which prosecutors accused Kimberly Potter of a blunder of epic proportions in Wright's death in April's traffic stop. During 8 days of testimony in the trial, jurors heard from 33 witnesses. Potter said during her testimony she mistook her gun for her taser and insisted she didn't want to hurt anybody. Body camera and patrol car footage was shown during the trial. In the video, Potter can be heard saying Altasia before shooting Wright.
Caused his own death, unfortunately. If he would have gone and with the officers, been handcuffed, go to the squad car, go take your ride downtown, then it's over.
In final remarks to the jury, prosecutors said Potter acted recklessly and with culpable negligence in drawing the wrong weapon, while the defense argued the young black man caused his own death by resisting arrest and attempting to flee. Potter, who is white, is charged with first and second-degree homicide. Potter would face a sentence of about 7 years under state guidelines. If sentences of the most serious charge, however, prosecutors have said they will seek more.
The death toll reached more than 300 after the typhoon Ray hit Philippines, becoming one of the deadliest typhoons in the Southeast Asian nation. Some areas are still cut off as operations of aid are still going on, and President Rodrigo Duterte promised funds of about $240 million to assess recovery efforts.
Some villages remain cut off, while the military is deploying planes, ships, and helicopters to deliver aid. More than 300 people were tragically killed in the Philippines by a violent typhoon that wrecked homes, flooded towns, cut off power, communication lines, and displaced hundreds of thousands in the country's central and southern areas. On Monday, military planes and naval vessels were mobilized to deliver relief to areas destroyed by Typhoon Ray. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana told reporters on Monday, I cite, "We are still assessing the damage, but it is huge. The first thing we're doing is to address the food and water supplies and medical care of the injured." Lorenzana told the armed forces to deliver relief goods using all available assets and send in more troops if necessary. The number of storm-related deaths increased as rescue operations continued. It has reached 375, making it one of the deadliest typhoons to strike the Southeast Asian nation. The toll of injuries has risen to 500, with 56 persons still missing. As reported by the police, the majority of the deaths occurred in the center region of Visayas, which is home to some of the most popular tourist sites in Bohol province, and the Caraga region in the northeastern Mindanao. Provincial Governor Arthur Yap told CNN Philippines that he expected the death toll to grow higher due to the disruption of communication lines, which made gathering information difficult. The President Rodrigo Duterte promised approximately $40 million to assist with recovery operations.
At least 8 people have died in floods that ravaged Malaysia over the weekend as the government faced criticism from the public and opposition lawmakers over its rescue efforts. 3 days of massive torrential rain over the weekend caused severe flooding in 8 states, partially submerging towns and villages in water and a strain on emergency services across the country. In a letter to the United Nations, the leader of Ethiopian Northern Tigray region has announced that all forces from the Tigray People's Liberation Front have been recalled home. This announcement opens a new phase in the deadly conflict that has pitted pro-government forces against Tigrayan rebels and their allies for over a year. Marwa Belaiwar on what follows.
In a step towards a possible ceasefire after 13 months of brutal war, Tigrayan forces fighting the central government, who had advanced in recent months in the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar, say they have withdrawn from neighboring regions in northern Ethiopia to open the door to humanitarian aid, said Getachew Reda, spokesman for the Tigrayan People's Liberties Front. The leader of Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, Debretsion Gebremichael, said in a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres that his forces, which were reportedly closing in on the capital Addis Ababa, had been recalled back to Tigray to give room for the international community to push for a peace process. He said, quote, "I have ordered those units of the Tigray army that are outside the borders of Tigray to withdraw to the borders of Tigray with immediate effect. We trust that our bold act of withdrawal will be a decisive opening for peace." End quote. The government of Ethiopia, which recently announced retaking towns from the rebels, is yet to comment on the Tigray People Liberties Front's move to withdraw its troops from key regions in a bid to bring an end to conflicts in the country that have claimed thousands of lives. The war erupted in November 2020 after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent the federal army into the northern region of Tigray to remove local Tigray People Liberties Front authorities who were challenging his authority and whom he accused of attacking military bases. The conflict in the Tigray region has expanded to other areas and forced at least 2 million people from their homes, and many civilians are not getting access to humanitarian assistance, while thousands of others have been killed by both sides.
A meeting between Thai Transport Minister Saksayam Chitchop and Han Jiqian, the Chinese ambassador to Thailand. The meeting involved discussions on possible Chinese support for a number of transport infrastructure projects. Saksayam stated that he had additionally mentioned with the Chinese ambassador progress within the long-delayed Thai-Chinese high-speed railway. Saksayam associated to the Chinese envoy that the Thai Prime Minister was eager to speed up the development of the railways to ensure that it will be linked as quickly as possible with the Laos-China railway. Gabriel Boric, the new Chilean president, will take office in March 2022. A president whose program promises a lot for all Chileans, but Boric's way to achieve his promises is full of obstacles. More with Nabil Khazini.
The streets of Santiago erupted in celebration Sunday after leftist Gabriel Boric became Chile's youngest ever president-elect with an unexpectedly large victory over his far-right rival, José Antonio Cast. A former law student at the University of Chile who didn't finish his studies was the president of the University of Chile Student Federation in 2012. As a student representative, he became one of the leading figures of the 2011-2013 Chilean student protests. In 2019, Chile knew a civil unrest. Boric was one of the politicians who negotiated the agreement that paved the way for a referendum to change the Chilean constitution. Gabriel Boric will become the official president of Chile when he is sworn in March next year. Chileans perceive it as a new era for the country.
Because he went to do good things at Chile, like protecting the animals, the environment, and the children, and it's so important that for Chile.
The president-elect repeated that his government program foresees advancing responsibility and the necessary transformations for the country without leaving anyone behind. We know there continues to be justice for the rich and justice for the poor, and we will no longer permit that the poor keep paying the price of Chile's inequality. I feel like an inheritor for the long trajectory of those who, from different places, have tirelessly sought justice. In Chile, the richest 1% of the country own a third of the total wealth. Gabriel Boric's path into reforms will not be easy. Strengthen the role of the state, reforming the current pension system, increasing the minimum wage, reducing working hours, increasing taxes on the richest, and achieving a better redistribution of wealth are the objectives of his administration will.
12 North American missionaries who were abducted in Haiti managed to escape on their own. Christian Aid Ministries announced the group were finally free last week after being held captive since October. The group broke out of the blocked door and slipped past guards on December the 15th after several stalled attempts at planning an escape. The gang that seized them had demanded a ransom of $1 million per hostage. However, it is not clear if any money was paid. According to the new reports about coronavirus outbreak in the country, Peru will mark new restrictions as a step to curb the Omicron variant rapid spread in the country. The decision, along with Christmas and New Year celebrations. Islam City reports.
Health Minister Hernando Cevallos said on Monday that Peru will tighten restrictions on Christmas and New Year holidays and will step up the use of coronavirus boosters after the discovery of up to 12 Omicron variants. Officials reported that the majority of Omicron's cases in Peru were found in Lima, with rapid spread around the world and concerns about potential economic implications. Cevallos told reports after reporting 8 new cases of Omicron in addition to the 4 cases announced on Sunday that Peru will postpone the third dose of coronavirus from 5 months to 3 months. Peru has vaccinated 74% of its target population twice, and the minister said he aims to reach 80% by the end of the year to avoid the next outbreak. Over 2 million cases of coronavirus infection in Peru and more than 200,000 deaths. It is one of the lowest mortality rates in the world. Ceballos said the government will reduce the public facilities in shopping malls from 80% to 60% and extend the curfew by 2 hours for Christmas and New Year to prevent further spread of the infection.
A court in East Timor sentenced an expelled American priest to 12 years in jail on Tuesday over charges of sexual abuse in orphaned and disadvantaged children under his care. It was the first trial of a priest over allegations of sexual abuse in the deeply Catholic country. The former priest faced 14 counts of sexual abuse of children younger than 14. The defendant was found guilty of several sex crimes. A panel of judges had handed down sentences of up to 37 years in jail, but the presiding judge reduced that to 12 years, citing the defendant's age. According to Deputy Mayor Cap Hayton, the death toll increased to 90 in a tank truck explosion in northern Haiti on Monday as Cap Hayton continues to work on the consequences of a catastrophic blast. Patrick Almoner said that the death toll was unfortunately incomplete because people staying in the hospital were seriously injured. The last figure released by Haitian authorities last Wednesday killed 75 people and severely burned 47. The foreign ministers of the G7 group expressed great concern about the spoiling of democratic elements in the Hong Kong's electoral system following Sunday's election. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States urged China to restore trust in Hong Kong's political institutions and halt the unjust mistreatment of people who support democratic values and the defense of rights and freedom. The Biden administration has announced a new special coordinator for Tibetan issues, saying the office will promote substantive dialogue between China and the Dalai Lama and push to protect the human rights and fundamental freedoms of the Tibetan people. The State Department announced on Monday that veteran diplomat Uzra Zeya would serve as the new coordinator while remaining in her position as Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights. A port worker and 6 others were arrested after 1.2 tons of cocaine was found hidden in a banana shipment in Sheerness port after it was targeted by more than 100 officials from the National Crime Agency and Kent Police in the early hours of Monday. The operation came after a long investigation into an organized crime group suspected of plotting with a port security guard to smuggle huge amounts of Class A drugs into the UK via Sheerness port. In a press statement, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs urged the Sudanese coup leaders to respond to the demands of the Sudanese population after the last riots which erupted on Sunday against the coup and the military police of the country.
The last declarations of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken came in the concern of the Sudanese situation, which is still witnessing tension and clashes between security forces of the coup leaders in country and the population, which is demanding no interference of the army in political issues of Sudan. Blinken has urged Sudan's political and military leaders to act in response to the aspirations of the Sudanese population for a democratic Sudan by putting the interests of the country above their own and commit to civilian-led democratic transition. For her part, the Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Anniken Huitfeldt, lamented that the military takeover on October 25th struck at the core of the transition that they have supported. The civilian-military partnership and the constitutional order was set aside. These last press statements of the two leaders came after riots erupted again in Sudan to mark the 3rd anniversary of the Sudanese revolution and express their dissatisfaction and wrath towards the coup leaders and their policy, which streams in the opposite direction of the demands of the October 25th revolution, which asked for a democratic state. It is worth recalling that the Sunday riots left many injured revolted citizens, during the clashes between the security and army forces and civilians near the Sudanese presidential palace.
And now violent explosions have rocked the northern neighborhood of Sana'a hours after the Saudi-led military coalition said it was launching air raids on legitimate Houthi military targets in the Yemeni capital. The Saudi-led coalition earlier asked civilians not to gather around or approach potential targets. Kyrgyzstan's mining industry has long been considered one of the country's leading economic sectors. Local communities, together with a few non-governmental organizations, however, have voiced opposition toward the mining sector. Opposition to mining in Kyrgyzstan stems from a variety of concerns. Gold mines impact the surrounding environment in Kyrgyzstan and as a consequence on the health of the population living nearby. Furthermore, there is a genuine risk of significant environmental damage that could affect and only Kyrgyzstan people, but Central Asia more broadly. In Burundi, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, responsible for investigating the crimes committed in this country since the Berlin Conference of 1885, presented on Monday its progress report to the Parliament of Burundi meeting in Congress, described one of the worst episodes of the inter-ethnic massacres in this country, which began at the end of April 1972 as the genocide against the Hutus of 1972 and 1973. The Hutus are in power today, a qualification that was endorsed by acclamation by both chambers of the Burundian parliament. During this investigation, 900 witnesses were interviewed, including those responsible for these massacres. The remains of nearly 20,000 victims have also been disclosed from some 200 mass graves, and thousands of documents relating to this period have been studied. The International Monetary Fund will start discussions in January on an extended credit facility with Mozambique. The fund said its first potential program with the country since suspending support in 2016, when Mozambique unveiled heavy borrowing it had previously failed to disclose in a $2 billion corruption scandal that promoted donors to cut off aid and caused a currency collapse and debt crisis. And for more economic news around the world, let's follow this report by Nabil Khazini.
European energy prices surged again as temperatures dropped and flows of natural gas through a key Russian pipeline fell to the lowest level in more than a month, a move the Kremlin said had no political backdrop. Europe's wholesale gas price rose as high as €148.50 per megawatt, up from a record high closing price of €136 per megawatt last week. The latest jump threatens to keep pushing up energy bills for millions of homes across the continent, just as weather forecasts anticipated temperatures below 0 degrees Celsius in several European cities. In the USA, the White House has no plans to curb future COVID-19 surges using a nationwide lockdown. A decision comes as Austria enters its fourth nationwide lockdown and the Netherlands institute a partial lockdown amid the COVID surge across Europe in recent weeks. Still in the USA, the United States is set to become the world's largest exporter of liquefied natural gas by next year, surpassing Qatar and Australia. The U.S. Energy Information Administration expects the country's exports of liquefied natural gas to reach 500 million cubic meters per day next year. The chief of the Lebanese bank, Riyad Salami, estimated his country's financial needs at about $50 billion to revitalize the local economy and reviving it again. Salami indicated that the amount may be through the International Monetary Fund, which will provide about $4 billion provided that Lebanon obtains additional loans from friendly countries. Lebanon was ranked by the World Bank among the 3 worst economic crises in the world, which led to a financial collapse and a record decline in foreign currency reserves at the Lebanese Central Bank.
The activities of the Festival of Women Entrepreneurs and Crafts was launched today, Tuesday, under the slogan of Women Ambassadors of Algeria. Zara Farjani reports.
Algerian Astor Foundation, Configuration and Coaching organized on the 21st of December one of the most powerful events for 2021 for women entrepreneurs in Algeria. The CEO of Astor Foundation, as well as other business managers and coaches, shared their experiences in the event in order to help future business owners develop.
Astor Group is actually special in organizing events, and this is its 5th edition where we have focused on developing and improving women's skills in the field of leadership and entrepreneurship.
Today I've been invited to share my experience and knowledge with the attendees from all over the Algerian territory, from the east, west, and talk about entrepreneurship principles.
The aim of this gathering is supporting and developing women initiatives in the field of establishing businesses and projects in the professional and craft fields.
Today I'm here to learn about leadership, and this is the first time for me, and it's really great to be here with all these women.
This event is made specifically for women, project owners and professionals to grasp more about establishing businesses.
Presenting Lala Sofia Creation brand here in this event today. I learned a lot of things about leadership and business management. It was really interesting.
The event focuses on the mechanisms and policies of empowering Algerian women as project owners and help them in developing their entrepreneurship skills.
I came in this event organized by Astor Group to share my experience, to share my knowledge, to teach people about visual identity. We talk about visual identity, brand, how to make a brand equity, logos, etc.
I'm here to share my experience and my business with the other Algerian women to develop their project.
Today's event, organized by the Astor Group under the slogan of Women Ambassadors of Algeria, focuses on empowering Algerian women as project owners and project managers in the professional and craft fields.
This year was marked by Dakar Fashion Week that began on Friday in the Senegalese capital and ended Sunday evening. With focus on sustainability, the edition gathered 18 designers from all over Africa and was organized by the Senegalese Adama Paris.
The 19th edition of Dakar Fashion Week gathered 18 designers from all over the continent and was organized by its initiator, the Senegalese designer Adama Ndiaye, known under the name of Adama Paris. The edition was easier to organize than last year, thanks to the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. There was excitement in the lobby of a large hotel in downtown Dakar, where the parade of young fashion designers was held on Sunday. The models quietly paraded around the corner to test outfits and make final adjustments before the show. Adama Paris, event organizer and Senegalese stylist, explained the idea of slow fashion and environmental impact decrease.
I don't want to live with fashion as the European dictates it. I don't want to do that anymore. I want women who respect so many different things, more than just bodies. Of course, they will always be models, beautiful ones. I want to be able to give room to other women, to different women.
For the designer, it is also important to highlight the young Pan-African designers who bring a refreshing fashion that does not follow the trend books.
My collection is called Hope. We try to use materials that are usually thrown away in nature. Here in Africa, we see a lot of plastics everywhere. For this dress, we use golden plastic. It's just to show that we can use the things we throw away and make dress out of them.
Moussa Versailles, a fashion designer, talks about his collection and his use of recycled materials. The Dakar Fashion Week is one of the continent's longest-running fashion exhibitions and was marked by responsibility it showed to operate in a sustainable way.
For the first time in a UK zoo, a white rhino calf was born at the park, which considered, according to zookeepers, a little miracle. The southern white rhino calf was born at Africa Alive near Lowestoft, Suffolk, to a 9-year-old mother Nigeri and 13-year-old father Zimba. The zoo, which is run by Zoological Society of East Anglia, is part of the European breeding program for this species and is home to four southern white rhinos, which the latter is nearly extinct due to increased poaching. However, conservation efforts have helped to augment rhinos' number around the globe to 18,000 in the wild. In an exclusive interview in our studio, the president of the National Football Federation, Sharafuddin Amara, or FAF, gave interesting statements regarding the national football team's journey to win the FIFA Arab Cup. Let's have a listen to a short clip of the full interview that will be aired right after this news bulletin.
And we have said, all of us, we have said, we go to Doha to win the Arab Cup, the FIFA Arab Cup. So we was determined to win it, and that was the motto in the Algerian Federation of Football. So Jamal Madi said before he will win the AFCON, and Bukhara said, I will win the FIFA Arab Cup, and I said the same thing, and I gave all the means, and I allowed to teams to work in the best conditions to win this cup. So I think we succeed, and the cup is here.
And finally, despite enormous press from European clubs and World Football governing body FIFA, the president of the African Football Confederation, CAF, Patrice Motsepe, confirmed that the 2022 African Cup of Nations will kick off on January the 9th as scheduled. An indirect message to the Africans, Motsepe says, together with the government of the Cameroon, will host the best of African football. Let's have a listen.
I'm so proud, so proud. And we are ready to show the world the best of African football, but also the best of African hospitality and the best of... Africans are a caring and a loving people. So it's going to be a successful AFCON, the most successful.
In January? When? The kickoff?
Well, I'm here from January 7. And if I'm here January 7... I'm here 7.
Yes,
7.
Okay.
Everybody must be here 7. So come January 9, they must kick off. So, but it's also important, we have to believe in our people. We have to stop being the ones that lack confidence and are always expressing skeptical, negative views of our own people. This is the generation where Africans must believe in Africans. We can host a football competition that's as good as you can see in Europe and in the world. So see you when we start January 9. As I said, I'm going to be here January 7. I'm bringing my wife and children because we are all Cameroonians now.
And now it's time to have a recap of our main top stories. The World Health Organization has urged people to cancel some of their holiday plans to protect public health as the Omicron variant spreads globally. The governor of a central Philippine province devastated by Typhoon Rai last week asking the government to quickly send food and other aid, warning that without outside help the situation will be worsening day by day. Turkey's lira gained as much as 15% plus in unpredictable trade on Tuesday, having posted a historic rebound from the record lows in the previous session. And earlier this year, the Kyrgyz state nationalized the Santera-owned mine, leading to a bitter legal battle that hasn't waned. That's all for this half hour. The news continues on Al 24 News. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.